Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Ray Show. I'm out in the torch shop. It's another marble day, and I wanted to share a couple little things to start with. These are these tungsten electrodes that I use for the raking pick. So these are three 32nd inch, come in these 10-piece packs. I find these on eBay, but you can find them from any welding place basically. I do go through them a little bit because of the process that I use in the raking, where I'm kind of right in the fire. So this is one that's used and getting short. You can see it's lost quite a bit of length. It's not like I don't get it really short because I need some length. And then I use these pin vices, simple little pin vise. And then I grind the tip initially. Then usually I sharpen the tip with a file. Tungsten's not super hard to file. So if I put this all the way down, the pin vise has quite a bit of depth to it. So if I go all the way down, it's probably about where this one was at, maybe. So I'll bring it out here a little bit. And to me, when you tighten these down, you've got to have pliers to really cinch this down. You don't want this thing moving on you, so go ahead and just kind of crank that down to where that is really tight in there. And there you go. There's our little tool tip for the day. So I'm going to do a central piece that's going to be put into our little warming oven, little garage oven, and incorporate it into the marble. And I'm going to start out with a 16mm clear rod to build that on. But before I do that, I'm going to make a little cane that's going to go in the background. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this purple lilac and this purple glass. And this one is. I think this comes from India. I'm not sure if this is Glasstronics or not. It looks really pretty purple in the raw rod. It never comes out to be that purple again. You might be able to see on the tip here, it goes to a blue, kind of a blue purple. Anyway, it's a pretty glass, but it's definitely different than most of the glass that I use. So we'll fire up here, and instead of doing a full-on ribbon cane with clear and stuff, I'm just going to do a simple little two-color twisted piece. So I'll just get a gather going on this purple lilac. There's different ways to doing this. If I was doing this with soft glass, I would do this kind of differently, but I kind of do this more of a blocky starting point. So we'll just kind of make a little bit of a little rectangular tablet, and then add this other glass onto it. This end of this rod just happens to be pulled out a thinner section, and don't need it to be that thin section. Boy, that's bright. Okay, that's probably enough glass. So today's marble is kind of a little variation. One interesting thing about the glass work is you can build up layers and see it from the front side or from the back side. If it's built up on clear, you can see into the back side basically. And that's what most all Vortex marbles are. Essentially, you're looking down into clear glass and seeing what was built out from literally the inside out. But today's marble, I'm going to do kind of a manipulation of a compression feature, sometimes called implosion, but most people like the implosion word to only refer to hollow, like a blown bubble imploding. And I'm going to do the technique with solid glass. Let's see, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to attach the handle. Okay, just going to twist this up, pull this out. So do just a kind of a gentle twist, turn or two, and kind of melt that together without twisting anymore. And you kind of see the different viscosity. The purple glass is not wanting to flow quite the same. The lilac turns transparent when it's hot, and obviously has a much lower viscosity. Okay, giving this a little bit of pull. This is a pretty thin little piece here. Make this a little bit more of a pinpoint. So trying to get this started out, hold down and scale, and then twisted fairly tight. It'll be a pretty skinny little twisted color piece. So hopefully this will add a little bit of fun color in the background. Come down to this end and cut this off. And I'll just leave it attached to this one 5mm rod, and that will be my handle. When I go to use that, alright, that's one little project. Then we're going to use our, this happens to be 16mm glass here. And we need to build up a gather and flatten out the end and proceed as if we were kind of doing a compression floral kind of pattern. So we're going to do some different things here. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you're doing well. Beautiful spring day here. High's supposed to be in the low 70s and lots of sunshine. We've had some kind of strange gyrations where we had some colder than usual weather. Then we had some hotter than usual weather. At the moment I got the watering, I think, pretty well caught up. But we're supposed to go into the 90s here in a couple days, which is a little toasty for June. With some of our shrubs, plants, trees, whatever around here that tend to be kind of late getting going, they're coming on strong. They look really good. They pulled out of a pretty harsh winter and they're doing really good. Chickens are kind of slowing down, putting out eggs. April and May, they just really crank them out. But they also start getting a little weird, laying eggs around the yard somewhere instead of back in the coop. So I found one nesting spot that they've got, and I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with these eggs. They're probably out somewhere around the yard. But Montana is kind of getting in the seasonal swing towards tourism, and we depend a lot on tourism in this state as an economic driver. It's pretty much our main economic driver next to agriculture. And we're just hoping that people are still wanting to get out and about and go to Yellowstone and Glacier Park and some of the beautiful places we have around here. So I'm building up some glass, then I'm going to flatten the end, do this decorative work on it, collapse it a little bit, and then this piece is going to be what's going to go into the little garage, be introduced into the marble. So that is like this switcheroo, this reversal, and normally I would build up a compression feature and it would just continue to use this same clear glass. You'd be viewing it from that side. In this case, it's going to flip and be viewed from the underside, if you will. So for that to happen, we can't have this be the full compression. It's actually going to be a bit more of a stretch after we get the initial work done. So let that gather, settle down, and we'll try and flatten this out. So we're just coming down onto this marver under the torch. Kind of polished it up the other day. It's a nice smooth surface. And this is the kind of step where you want as large a diameter as you can get, basically. Trying to maintain some density of the glass behind this front face. So in other words, just trying to keep kind of a conical shape. Just kind of keep flaring this out. We don't want to go too far with this. This is about where we need to be. Alright, the unusual thing with this is I'm going to go to a frit field and then add clear dots to implode or compress or condense or whatever. So now, I'm just going to heat the face and pick up some frit. So try and do this just in one pickup. That whole face pretty well covered. All right. So this is combining a couple of ideas that I haven't done before. We want to get this pretty well melted in. A little bumpiness there, but it's pretty smoothed out. Okay, the next thing I want to do is gold fume that face. And I want this piece to cool down a little bit to accept that fume. It's not the easiest positioning to fume this face. I think we're getting it. It's really hard to gauge just how much fume is on the surface there. And some areas pick up the fume better than others. Which I guess gives a little bit of artistic variance there. It's actually some chemistry on the surface between the marvering and the frit and so on. I was hoping it would pick up a little bit more of an even coat, but we're going to have sort of a strange transitionary area. Okay, well, we're going to have to run with that and hope for the best. So I kind of haven't really decided what pattern I'm going to do here. But I think for simplicity's sake, get this out of my way, I'm going to kind of go with a bit of a spiral. I don't know if that is perceivable as a spiral, but we'll see. So now it's just kind of like using the standard kind of compression technique. Just not going to go the whole 9 yards with it. So trying to melt in those clear dots. And as I often do, trying to burn out some of that fume in between. Being pretty stubborn. Okay, then the whole basic process is trying to concentrate on the rim and see if we can pull that together. But I don't want to pull it down to a point. I want to pull it down to a condensed version. So this involves quite a bit of concentration on what is the glass doing. Keep the rotation on center. We'll do some of the initial steps of doing a little heat and pressing. I got that initial process started of getting the color to pull up into the clear. At least that's what it looks like it's doing. Start to see that coming up inside. Using a little bit of a downward angle to be able to pull that clear glass around the edges. I have to try and imagine how this is going to be applied to the marble build. So I want all those pieces around that center to condense to some degree, but not too far. I keep thinking they're going to hit that switch and it's going to calm down the flame. It doesn't work that way. Okay. So this is kind of the core element. Now I need to get it off of this rod and into my little garage. So the idea here is we're going to punty up on this face and cut this rod off. Okay, because that represents kind of a big fat handle, but we still need a handle. So we're going to just switch over to one of these little 5mm rods. Sure if that was going to come off of there or not. Doesn't look like it will. Now this is going to be the front face that we're going to look at. So better to just kind of leave a little bit of glass on here than mess up with the pattern too much. Let's see, I'm going to use a marble mold to kind of poke this edge in a little bit. I'm trying to imagine how this is going to attach to my core clear rod that'll be like the front lens. This could be a really interesting piece, just like looking at it from this direction. And that's kind of what I'm experimenting with, is switching up the direction that you're going to look into it. Nice little saucer shape here. So I'll have to remember this. It's a good starting point for a little standalone UFO piece. Okay, well this is going to go in the garage here. And start in on the larger rod. Put away this frit for now. Okay, once again, we've got to build up a gather here to mate up with our pre-made piece. times when we pull stuff off like that with the tweezers, it leaves another mess. Trying to keep just the clean glass as much as possible. Okay. Settle this down. Okay. I just gotta hook these up. Piece of cake. You know, when you're doing this, trying to get both these pieces in the flame, you definitely want to avoid banging into each other, which is problematic. And you get things to stick together where you didn't want it. Now, when we do this contact, try and do a real slow, very gentle contact. Use plenty of heat to coax these two together without creating a weird crease. Just gotta give it some time to come together. At this point, my handle on my right side is kind of useless. It's get pretty hot. a little surprised at this point that it's still such a sharp crease between the two pieces. I think this would flow a little better. I think I'm going to roll this in the L-Marber here just a little bit to bring this together. Now we're going to transition to focusing the heat on this outer end. Okay, now we're going to develop a little bit more cone shape here. Alright, well, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see around the edges or look into the depth with this. So I'm not going to do a whole lot of crazy decorating on the back side or in the interior. Alright, got some squiggles on the back. Well, that's the point of this whole series of making marbles, is trying to explore some different ideas, and some work well and some don't. Probably most of them don't work all that well. But if you don't try something new, you're never going to make something new. Okay, define our cone again. Okay, pull that end out. More of a sharp end. And now I'm going to do some blue spruce frit to kind of close in the background. So this I want to be pretty thick cover. Okay. Well, hopefully that's enough to kind of close in the inside from the outside. Alright, well, we wind up with some mosaic of little windows into the backside, but that'll work for this marble. So as often the case with this style of marble, some of the first steps that I do will determine whether this is an interesting, cool effect or not. And you still got to put in all the work to get it finished and through the kiln cycle before you know what's really going on. Add some silver fume onto the back side there. And now we fill it in to make it round. Okay, use a kind of stitching process to lay down clear, push that air out of the groove. Coming up on this edge is kind of ill-defined, and the frit kind of makes for a messy transition, so you just have to kind of create some sort of a definition edge. And define these end points. Okay, I'll use a larger flame. And throw down some glass expeditiously. Okay, that's kind of short. Yeah, work this in and should be enough build up on there. I think I turned that thing off. He's having that little garage heater sitting there cooking. Just heats up the whole space in a hurry. Yeah, its whole back interior might be kind of barely visible. I don't know. Might be able to see around the edges. There's a lot of things that happen with the optical geometry. Allows you sometimes to see around the edge of a central element, and sometimes there's some pass-through looking all the way through what's in the middle. So kind of get this a bit of an angle up and let that color to the front lens interface kind of build up. Okay. Settle this down, and then we can add our color on the back side. I've got black and mist and unobtanium for today's marble. And again, this transition line is kind of indistinct, so you can try and just follow that edge we created with the clear glass against the frit. Okay, that was black. And this is mist. And then, ever popular unobtanium. Your favorite aerospace ingredient. Oops. Apparently, need too much leverage on there. Broken an odd spot. Okay, chase out a few of those bubbles. Alright, you need to get these colors thoroughly melted in. Okay. We need our fairly aggressive flame here to do the raking. did okay. Okay, a little bit of fiddling around there. And pop a couple bubbles and tidy up some places that kind of split apart. Matching dragon shirt and dragon mug. Sort of. Can't tell which one I've got. I think that's this one. Yeah. Alright, I'll give this a little spin in the marble mold and smooth it out a bit. We need to cool this down before we add our punty. So kind of a bullet point for the punty. These are hot attachments here. Okay, I'm going to start working on building this front lens. I'm going to build it up kind of oversized because we're going to strip off some glass that's kind of scummied up on the surface. This process inevitably leads to some optical anomalies, lines that run through the glass deep enough that pulling the glass off is sort of not really very realistic. You'd have to really cut off a lot of glass. Plus, you can't really see those kinds of anomalous effects until after it's gone through its annealing cycle. But there's a few artifacts that show up when I do my pictures and videos of these finished marbles, because I'm kind of zoomed right in on them with a lot of lighting. And it lets you see everything, including the flaws. Last week, I left just a little bit of the punchy glass on the front lens, and you can see a little circle on there. So that was a little bit of a boo-boo. Not sure how many people would even notice that without having it pointed out. And it's the sort of thing that in general viewing conditions, you're not going to see it. You have to look pretty close. There's one thing about the Vortex marble pattern in general is that front lens. It is a lens. It's magnifying things inside. So any little bubbles and little ripples, it's going to magnify them. So I tend to build this up. It starts looking like an acorn to me. So we got a good amount of glass on this front side, and reach out here and cut this off. I'm letting the punchy side run real easy. I don't want to put any torque on that. So it's just the left-hand side, my clear rod there, I'm putting some pressure down on that. And pull out my ice cream cone here. Oh, the tools are hot. I need another cold water container here to cool things off. I'm going to wind up going around this twice on this edge. This right now is removing a good bit of the contaminated glass. This is where it's kind of bunched up. Okay, now we can pay more attention to cleaning up that frit. It's kind of spilled over the edge here. Alright. I still need to skim off a little bit of glass. Sometimes the tweezers leave a bunch of mess on there you've got to get rid of too. So you got bright getting the tweezers too much into the flame. Well, that got a little sloppy there, but okay, I think that's good. Getting warm now. Alright, now we're down to the hill shape. The circumference looks pretty good on this. Sometimes I hit this in the elm arbor just to kind of keep it a little bit more round on center. And even a step like this right now, it's going to affect the optics. Looking around the edges of my original centerpiece there. There's a little fast spinning to try and push that glass outwards. Okay, so he's got a little funky shape. Try and clean this up in the marble mold. So that's pretty decent. The clear side now is pretty much got the general shape and the general quantity of glass to make up kind of half the marble. Okay, another step, and we need to settle down. Oh yeah, we can see around the edges. Alright, well, we'll just have to make sure we dig out this punty and a couple steps ahead from now. And this backside, I don't try and knock these punties off. They're fused on there pretty good, so we keep that up and cut that loose and then drop the marble down kind of vertical to keep it from going too far out of whack as it's firming up. And then we'll tweeze off this remnant. It's kind of crazy on that interior with the red hot exterior bleeding through some of that frit and that open lattice of the frit. A lot of steps in making glass where you think, wow, I wish I could just have it look like that. It's a finished item, just glowing red or purple or different things that glass will do at some point. You just have to take in those little moments as a glass blower to just appreciate how cool that is to be able to have right in our hands some molten glass. Trying to get this to shape up without using tooling as much as possible. It's like the less tooling you rely on, it can take a little longer, but you have less distortions, and sometimes tooling can just really screw up what was a really nice marble. But at some point, we need to do a little, so we're kind of going kind of level. And that's going to leave this little bump on the end. It's kind of something I learned over time, that doing that little move there and leaving a little bump out and then letting that melt in naturally. This marble doesn't have that real deep vortex effect because you've got this centerpiece that's blocking the view, but it really helps preserve. There's a lot going on in that last 1/8 of an inch at the bottom of the vortex. And oftentimes it gets kind of flattened out or rounded out, so it's really hard to get it to go to a point. So come back in here, give a little second, and then we're going to run through that bump and incorporate that into the back. We're getting there, but all these little moves, a little here, a little there. And a lot of times this next run in the marble mold will do the majority of the full shape, but it doesn't always work that easily. I'm sure it has a lot to do with how much the core heat base is hot enough. And drop it in here and get up to a shape, and then we push a little bit. Come back down level. A little bit of a push-pull. So we're letting this hang straight down. That front lens stretch out a little bit. That last move, pushing down on it, kind of squishes that lens. So a lot of this sort of horsing around, but of course it depends a lot on the size of your marble and how much heat you've got going on. So once you're getting it pretty close to the full round shape, then it can be a little bit more aggressive with some pressure in the marble mold. You're not going to affect any of the interior geometry at this point. But every time you hit that marble mold, it also sucks a lot of heat out of the glass. Oops. Okay, now we want to be a little bit more strategic and get smooth, round and smooth. So at this point, I think we got that edge pretty well defined and closed up together. Now we're going to let that mold soak some heat out and try and drop that core temperature down. So now, when we go and keep this backside, we're just doing a flame polish. You kind of get it as hot as you feel comfortable, and then get out of there and just keep rotating till we're done with the tooling on the back side. I think it's come together the way I hoped it would, really. It's actually in some ways got more of a view around the edges than I thought there'd be. So you can see down into the far reaches. It didn't elongate as much as I thought I might try and get it to do. I think basically you need to repeat something like that on a blown bubble to get the effect that I was thinking of, but I wanted to see it done without using any hollow work. So, this is the step that I kind of messed up a little bit last week. So one thing is to get all of that glass out of there. It was part of the punty rod, and the attachment point where it may have little scuzzy bubbles or something. And then you want to be able to heat it back in without introducing new problems. Now, usually when I've done this, it's pretty evident when there's still a ring of glass left, but I'm going to be gun shy and do way too much plucking the glass out of here, but hopefully I got it all. Now just threw a chunk of carbon on there. If I can juggle these together. So at the moment, that very front face is a little flattened out, or even a bit of a divot there. So I'm giving it some angle, let that glass pull out and fill that in. Now this, I don't like to do a whole lot of tooling on the front lens, but I could do kind of a little bit initially to make sure the glass is filling in all the way, so the diameter is a full curvature. does. We think we got the shape pretty well done. Now the marble mold's just going to add ripples, so we'll just use the heat and rotation. Just we need to get that heat going until the surface starts flowing, and then get out of the heat, keep rotating, watching the reflections, and any imagery you can see through the lens. Check out that we don't have any big anomalies. Just about there. One more heat. That should do it for the marble construction. Now we just need to cool this down, get it off the punchy, polish that end. And as always, we're just so deeply appreciative of all you guys watching these videos. I'm just doing my silly thing. Anybody wants to come in, check it out. If you gain something from it, that's awesome. I really love some of the comments where people did find it valuable to them. It's valuable to me, and I'm happy to share. Okay, well, I'm curious to see how those colors turn out. See little artifacts from stitching those two pieces together, but not too bad. Okay, we're going to use some wet tweezers to fill our punchy mark. Knock that loose. Pretty well smoothed over. That's it, man. Another crazy marble. Yeah, got a little bit later start today. It's all good. Because I start doing some edits on this afternoon. Takes me pretty much all day tomorrow, even a little bit the next day to get it all finished. But this one is ready for the kiln. Appreciate you all so much. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of those around you, and be kind to those on the street, people you meet. And we'll see you again on another adventure next time.